This is the Non Sequitur Show, where bold ideas are righteous, unique perspectives are gospel, and strong opinions are sacred. Tonight's debate is brought to you in part by the Great Debate Community Online. Join in on the discussion at www.greatdebatecommunity.com. And now, here are your hosts, Kyle Curtis and Steve McCray.
Hello, everybody. Slight change of plans due to the meltdown of G-Man this past weekend. He has canceled for tonight, so we will actually not be having a debate between G-Man and Pam Whissle. However, Pamela is still here with us, and what we're going to do is actually open up the hangout for any questions. If you'd like to have a discussion with her, if you're a theist, we especially like to get you in. Steve will be sending out the links for that. And I'm just going to go ahead and introduce Pamela Whissle. She is the membership director and editor-in-chief of American Atheist magazine. She's been there since 2011, and her MA is from the University of Cincinnati, and her BA is from the University of Dayton. Prior to coming to the American Atheist, she was a local news anchor for a national public radio affiliate and a subscription-only publication to one that is sold in bookstores throughout the United States and Canada. In doing so, American Atheist has become the first periodical in U.S. history to appear on newsstands with the words atheist in the title. It's a pleasure to have her back. Pamela, thanks for coming, and so sorry that you didn't get the chance to interact with G-Man.
Well, it's a pleasure to be here anyway. Thank you so much for having me back. I had a great time last time, and I'm looking forward to some good conversations tonight.
Yeah, that was a lot of fun
last
time. I enjoyed that too.
Pam, while we're waiting for people to kind of come in, why don't you I tell you what, the most exciting thing I think that you can probably tell everyone is the keynote speaker for this year's convention and where it's at.
Yeah, the American Atheist National Convention will be March 29th till April 1st in Oklahoma City, Oklahoma, and our keynote speaker is Hugh Laurie, absolute television icon, as well as an excellent blues musician. We are so honored to welcome him as our A-list celebrity guest. This is the first time that an A-list celebrity will be appearing at an atheist event. So we're very, very appreciative of that. And it's going to be a wonderful time. We've got all sorts of great speakers. Seth Andrews, who is the editor of The Thinking Atheist. He's going to be speaking, as well as David Silverman, of course, our president. Nick Fish, our national program director, is going to be speaking. And Barry Lynn, who just retired from his position as the executive director of Americans United for Separation of Church and State. Actually, I should say the Reverend Barry Lynn.
Ooh.
Yeah. Americans United is a wonderful organization. It's filled with people who are on both sides of the theist spectrum. You know, church-state separation is good for everybody.
Absolutely.
Shenko, she's an activist and a feminist campaigner and a speaker and a writer, and she's the leader of the International Women's Movement Femen, F-E-M-E-N. She's going to be coming from Russia. Anthony Magnabosco, who is a practitioner of street epistemology, which is it's a conversational method for respectfully challenging claims by asking probing questions. We're going to have a really cool student. Gavin Grimm is going to be there. He's a student and activist who successfully sued his school district in federal court after the school board voted to adopt a discriminatory policy that would have segregated transgender students from their classmates. Never mind bathrooms. This is just hanging out, I guess. We're going to be screening the new documentary about Bill Nye called The Bill Nye Film, and two of the filmmakers are going to be at the event. After we watch the film, there's going to be a panel discussion and a Q&A with the two of them, and we're going to get all sorts of behind the scenes fun information from them. That's going to be great. And we're going to have a comedy night. And Victor Harris, who is a poet and an atheist, is going to be emceeing the entire evening. It's going to be a great, and there's just so much more on here. You can go to atheist.org/convention 2018, and you can get the details. We've also got a pub quiz. We've got a Cards Against Humanity tournament. We've got a comedy show. We've got a service project that we're going to be doing. We're going to be preparing non-perishable meals for a local food pantry. And this is something new that we're doing that we're really excited about. And that just shows you that atheists show up for good. And then after that, we're going to have an after party for all of the volunteers. And there's going to be a lot of great camaraderie. We're going to have 2 parties with dancing and alcohol.
Of course.
Someone I'm really excited to tell you about is Allison Gill, who is our new National Legal and Policy Director. She is a rock star in the LGBTQ movement. She's an accomplished attorney, nationally recognized expert, and she worked as a consultant to foundations and nonprofits focusing on advocacy strategy and systemic change. She worked for HRC, the Human Rights Commission. We're so lucky to have her on board. And
excellent.
Probably who I'm most excited about is Mary Johnson. Mary Johnson is a former missionary of charity. She was a nun with Mother Teresa's religious order for 20 years and left that order and started life out in the non-convent world after only spending her adult life as a missionary of charity for Mother Teresa. She's written a fantastic book called An Unquenchable Thirst. I'm sure you've heard of Christopher Hitchens' book, The Missionary Position. Yeah. It's a really good book, and he sort of lays out all of the external things, the external side of the bad effects of the missionaries of charity. Well, Mary goes into it from a first-person perspective, and she just talks about everyday life as one of those nuns, and it's not a happy story at all. And she's now an atheist, and she is a humanist. She's a humanist celebrant. She was voted the best humanist celebrant in New Hampshire a couple of years ago. I think actually going 2 years in a row, and she's on the Yale Humanist Community's board of directors. Very articulate woman. Her book is fantastic.
I'm curious, Pam, real quick. What was it that made her lose her faith? Well, like what event kind of brought her around on that?
She actually recognized that the things that were being done. She went in wanting to help the poor. She wanted to be in Calcutta. She wanted to, just help the poorest of the poor. And what happens is you enter that order, and you just have to be 100% obedient. And she was never sent out on that kind of work. She was always put in an administrative role or a teaching role, that sort of thing. Mm-hmm. And the inefficiency that the missionaries of charity go about, their work just really does much more harm than good. And she gave it 20 years, and she tried, and just the logic and the reason just could not, it couldn't stay silent for long. And so she just eventually left because she couldn't live that kind of life anymore, where the only thing to really do was to be obedient to your superiors. And it really wasn't so much about helping the poor or making, the best use of resources. They deliberately shown a lot of things. And, becoming a poor person in order to help the poor isn't the way to do it. And these nuns take a vow of not only poverty, chastity, and obedience, but they also take a vow to help the poorest of the poor. But they themselves are poor. And when you have no strength or resources, you're not going to be a very helpful person. So
Gotcha.
it's just, it doesn't work, basically.
Real quick, not to interrupt you, Pam, but Steve, I believe you have something that you need to address.
Yeah, if I can get in real quick, just to let people know, G-Man did not flake on us. He is at the hospital now. He was coughing up blood, probably because he was, yelling so much the other day, or at least, he got so hoarse. But he didn't flake out on us. He actually is at the hospital right now due to coughing up blood. He told people it's fine to tell people that. We wish him the best. I want to make sure that people know that he didn't just, cancel out of no reason. I mean, obviously in the last few videos he had, you can tell his voice was strained. So he is getting treatment for that right now, and he can't really talk much more than that. But anyways, for the people that want to join, all you got to do is message me on Facebook, message me on G+, message me on Twitter, message me with 2 styrofoam cups and a piece of string if you need to. Get a hold of me. And
No, I think it's the cans that work.
is it the
Do
cans?
styrofoam cups work as well?
I thought it was styrofoam cups
I always
too.
did cans.
We were too poor for cans growing up. Yeah, we had to just use a piece of shoelace to try to communicate with each other.
Okay.
But we'll get some people in here. So if you want to come in here, message me. I'll give you the link. Obviously, I can't put the link out public. I can't put it in the live chat, but I can give it to you directly. So if you want to come in, you want to talk to Pam, by all means, message me, and we'll have a little free-for-all here. Sound good?
That sounds really good.
And let's get some theists in here. I mean, this is your chance right now. You got Pam for the American Atheist. She's the editor-in-chief. She's a marketing director. She's a big wig. I mean, she's a heavy hitter. I mean, I've contacted Nephilim Free. Oh, just go with it, Pam. You're a heavy hitter.
I want to go back to that. How do you define an atheist conversation?
No. We've got about 3 people watching. We want to keep them. No, we have a lot more than that, actually.
Okay.
Actually, I could actually go with Pam having this conversation because we agree on this. So
well,
this would this would be actually something that would be interesting. Pam, I tell you what, while we're waiting on somebody to come in, what is your definition of atheist? And do you think that agnostics themselves are atheists?
Live feed, I do apologize in advance. I apologize, live feed, for this.
All right, you know what? We'll table that. You can just listen to the first podcast. That'll be fine.
Did we really get into? We didn't get into it too much on the first podcast, did we?
We did a little bit. We did a little bit. Yeah. But see, Pam, just so you know, that it's not just you and I that think this way. We've asked Seth Andrews. We had Seth Andrews on last week, and he said the same thing.
Well, I wouldn't expect him not.
What did he say?
Huh?
What did he say?
He said that or he told Steve that Steve was more than happy to believe whatever definition that he liked for atheist, but if he's sitting back at breakfast drinking a cup of coffee, he would think Steve is an atheist,
which is fine. That's never been a problem. People can think whatever they want. We're not the mind police, right? Yeah.
Pam, go for it. Do you hear the testiness in his voice?
No. I have only had half a cup of coffee. I am not prepared for this conversation. We'll table it for another time.
Well, I want to know who gets to decide what a word means.
No, it's not. It's never been the argument.
Thank you.
That's never been the argument, trust me. Anybody use any definition they want. That's never been an argument.
She's making it a new argument.
We'll table that.
Why can't you do that?
You can.
What's the point of having words if everybody can just come up with their own definition of stuff?
No, there's words that have multiple meanings. People can pick what meaning they want for it.
Okay.
That's it.
That's the whole argument.
What's that?
Can they pick any meaning at all?
Well, I mean, I would think that you would have a meaning that you can find somewhere in a dictionary or encyclopedia rather than a stipulative. But
okay. But which dictionary are you going to go with?
I prefer encyclopedias more than dictionaries. Are we really having this conversation? The people in the live chat are going, hell no, hell no. I have nothing to do with this, people. People,
I think Steve's sweating a
people
little
are,
bit.
no, I just don't want to turn off the entire live chat because they're all going, we're sick of this topic. And I don't blame them. I'm even sick with it. I've had much better conversations with on other topics as of recently. Like we were talking about.
Steve, I see no
DNA's
comments
code.
about they're sick of this.
Are you not reading the same live chat I am, or do you not speak English? They're typing in English.
I think so. But I
all
may
these
have
thousands
a
of people
different
watching,
definition.
and they're mocking me because, Steve's losing. Get him, Pam. Oh, thank you very much, RSC. There's nothing to lose. It's not a win-lose conversation here. I wouldn't be happy to have it, but I think we had planned on some other things. And by the way, Kyle, I know where you live. I'm going to find you.
You don't know where I live, actually.
I know, but I will find you. I will hunt you down.
Okay.
I have a good
You haven't
area.
been to each other's houses?
He's somewhere.
He
He's somewhere in
lives on
North
the-
America.
Yeah, he lives on the east or west coast. I live on the east coast. So. Yeah. We have a hard enough trouble trying to keep up with time zones.
Yeah, it is kind of difficult. I usually try to. Lately, been using EST time only for the fact that he is on EST, and so that way we at least have one specific time zone we're using. I mean, I'd rather use like standard time, like US. What is it, GMT or something? But that would confuse you.
The
more.
live chat, by the way, Pam is these two comments. Tyler says Pam is fantastic. Hit him with that sarcastic method,
Socratic
Pam, and then
method.
right underneath.
Socratic. Sarcastic method.
Let me put my glasses on. Sorry, Tyler. I didn't mean to.
That's good too. The
I'm actually
sarcastic
much
method.
better at the sarcastic method than I am at the Socratic method.
Yeah, we were
See,
looking
that's
forward
what-
to her
oh.
and G-Man. She was going to tear him up.
Hashtag Pam Smash. That's epic. Go, Pam, go.
Well, I want to
Steve's
know
losing. Getting Pam.
why does it even matter if
You want to know? You want to know the hard argument?
why does it
okay.
matter that you can't call yourself an atheist?
You want to know the hard argument in a nutshell? Real simple.
Yeah.
Okay. There's multiple ways of describing what atheism is. One of which is what the American Atheist does on their front page, which is anybody who lacks a belief. So if you're a non-believer, they describe that position as an atheist, correct?
Yes.
Okay. In other sources and other more formal things, an atheist is actually somebody who has an active either belief that God does not exist or that they believe the proposition is false. So it is a belief rather than a lack of. It's stated in the positive rather than the negative position. That's it.
Okay, that's hair splitting. That is, there are a million angels dancing on the head of a pin, and we're splitting their hair. That's how tiny the hair splitting is.
Well, just one's an actual belief. I believe God does not exist, and the other one is I just lack a belief. That's it. And so you go by one definition, I go by another. The whole argument has been, if people can use your definition, then people should be able to use the formal definition like I use, and everybody's happy.
Oh, absolutely. As long as everybody knows that everybody's an atheist, that's what matters.
So even theists are atheist? Even theists?
Sure.
So
of course, name a theist who believes that every god that's ever been imagined is real.
Oh, okay. So hey, I got an idea. Instead of having "Do atheists exist?" this could now be "Do theists exist?" Would that work?
Well, sure, theists exist, but everybody's an atheist. Not everybody's a theist. Richard Dawkins put it best. He would say you say to a theist, there's a list of 299 gods that you don't believe in, and my list is simply one god longer than yours.
Right, but for a theist, it just means you have to believe in at least one god. It doesn't matter which one. If you think there's one god out there that does exist, you would be considered a theist. So you can't. So the theist and atheist are mutually exclusive positions. You cannot be both.
No, they're not. Well, and again, what American Atheist is interested in is getting rid of the stigma that surrounds the word atheist in the United States.
Yeah, you want to normalize
because atheist. Yeah, we're going to normalize it. Atheist does not mean immoral. It doesn't mean corrupt. It doesn't mean unable to tell right from wrong. It doesn't mean any of those things. Unfortunately, that's the association that the word that the word has.
Yeah, and that's it is
And we need
unfortunate.
to,
Yeah, that is a good argument. I mean,
yes, it's very,
I do
yeah.
agree that the word should be normalized. There should be no stigma attached to it. I have absolutely no problem with that type of argumentation because the reasons why I don't associate with the actual label atheism has nothing to do with the negative stereotypes, nothing at all.
Mm-hmm.
But there are people out there
Okay.
that I'm sure they don't want to be called atheist because wherever they might be, it might have ramifications in their real life. We all know that people, if they tend to say that they're atheists, might have problems with their work, not be able to get into political things. It's a fact of life, and unfortunately, that needs to change. It needs to be normalized. Absolutely.
Yeah, and the best thing that somebody can do is if there aren't any severe consequences. Now, I'm not telling anybody to come out of the closet if their spouse is going to leave them or if they're going to lose their job or, if it's going to be something that's going to, fracture their relationship with their relatives or anything like that. Absolutely not. But there are a lot of people who just kind of never say anything because they just kind of think it's, they would maybe offend believers. And you have to get over the idea that offending somebody is a bad thing because offense is going to be taken by someone with everything anybody would say. Offense is taken, it's not given. If you say, it's kind of like saying chocolate is much more delicious than vanilla. Well, what if somebody doesn't like chocolate? They could easily be offended. Well, what are you saying, that I don't know what tastes good? I mean, that's offense. Offense is nothing. It's absolutely nothing, and we're terrified of offending, at least when it comes to religion, and we shouldn't be.
But is it offense, or is in a lot of cases there are people that I know of quite a few of them actually that even their own families don't even know that they are atheist, and so
Right.
a lot of them, as you put them as in the closet, they feel that if they did announce that they were atheist, they would be massive amount of discord within the harmony of the family unit, and that's true in a lot of cases. I mean, it's like coming out gay. It has the same type
do
of.
It if that's going to be if there's going to be consequences like that, then absolutely do not do it. But there are a lot of people who simply just don't. Well, first of all, they think that they're the only one. They don't even know that there are other people who don't believe. But a lot of people just simply they want to do it they want to stay in the closet out of some sort of obligation to be polite, like disagreeing has anything to do with manners. I mean, you can disagree. It's how you disagree that matters, not that you disagree.
Yeah, no, I have no problem with people disagreeing. In fact, people should disagree, especially when it comes to theological things. I think that if you had a society that had all the same religious beliefs, it's not good for society. I don't think that it has any benefit, because then you have a theocracy, and then you have a dominant type of structure that leads to tyranny, leads to atrocities. Throughout history, obviously, religion has generally not been that great for the most part. I mean,
if you had a society where everybody truly did have the same religious belief, I think things would go along absolutely perfectly.
Really?
It's when you have somebody. Well, sure.
Depends what the religion
everybody
is.
is in total agreement.
If everybody was Islam, would things be perfect if we're under Sharia law, even though they all agreed with it?
Well, but see, the thing is, they don't all agree with it. That's where the discord comes.
But if they all agreed with Sharia law, we would all be living under Sharia law. We'd all be punished accordingly. And I don't think that'd be a good society to live in.
Well, no, and those societies are the ones that don't last very long. And that's the very example that you can bring up when somebody says to you, well, if you're not religious, how can you tell right from wrong? Well, I can tell right from wrong because right is good and wrong is bad. And if you want to just take it even just to the evolutionary level, if you've got a society where everyone's killing each other, they're not going to be around to reproduce. The societies that work together, those are the ones that keep on going. I mean, that's simply a numbers game.
Yeah, I know a lot of theists like to say that you have to have some type of deity in order to have some kind of foundation for morals, which I don't agree with in any way, shape, or form. There are actual moral theories out there that do not require grounding with a deity, even
Now, what
objective moral theories.
I do think is that you have to put some thought into it. You can't just if you want to be a decent human being, you need to ask questions of yourself, and you need to kind of give some thought as to what's good and what's bad, and what works in one situation may not work in another situation. That's just using your abilities of reason, but you don't have to take them from a text that was written thousands of years ago by some people in the Middle East.
So let me ask you,
take it from, yeah.
Let me ask you quick for the American Atheist. You obviously you promote atheism, but would you also consider the American Atheist to be an anti-theist organization as well, or you don't touch upon that aspect of more of the I don't want to say militant atheist, but the atheists that actually go out there and advocate get rid of religion?
Yeah, that's another interesting characterization, and I'd like to talk about that. But back to your question about, are we anti-theist? American Atheists is anti-theist when there are civil rights in this country being denied to people because of someone's religious belief. That's when we are anti-theist. If you're imposing your religious belief, I mean, let's just take, there's so many examples. Toss out an example. Let's just take the abortion issue. If there are the places in the world that have the lowest abortion rates are the ones where abortion is safe and legal, and reproductive rights are enjoyed by men and women, and that's simply the truth. So you can either have abortion be illegal, or you can have it be reduced. Now, if you want it reduced, if you were to talk to a quote unquote pro-lifer, and you would ask them, now, what do you want? Do you want it illegal, or do you want it reduced? You cannot have it both ways. You would hope that the person would say, well, of course I want it reduced. But they often don't. But because they don't, for some reason, they just don't want to accept the terribly sad reality that there are always going to be women who are determined to end their pregnancies. That's a given. That's not gonna change anytime soon, and unless there is a profound change in the human condition, and I don't know what that would look like or what it would take. There are always going to be women determined to end their pregnancies.
Does the American Atheist take a stance on that per se, though? I mean, obviously, a lot of the anti-abortion does come from
because the only objection to providing abortions is as part of just reproductive health is a religious one.
Mostly, there are atheists that are against it as well, but they're much obviously fewer.
Well, but they're not. What they don't like abortion, don't have one.
Yeah, but there's still atheists out there that do to advocate against abortions. They find it to be morally in their positions.
Yes,
yeah. But they're rare. Granted, I mean, most of these things do come from a religious perspective. I mean, let's be straightforward here. That the things like people against gay marriage. Why is that? Well, because some people are religious and they think Leviticus says this and the Bible says that. That's where the vast majority of it comes from. We all know this. I think it's a misinterpretation of it, and I don't think the Levitical Code was even utilized for that, as far as I know. But I think that a lot of the things when it comes to the abortion thing as well, it's because, God doesn't like abortion, therefore I don't like abortion. And it really limits a person's ability to actually think on their own. Okay, well, if we limit abortion, then what are the consequences? If we do this, what are the consequences? Because we have people in our community that are actively anti-abortion, but their arguments are pretty bad. They're really not.
Well, their arguments are terrible because there is a way to reduce abortion. It's been proven. It works. And it starts really with sex education in school. And then it just,
Yeah, they seem to be against that as well.
And then, it goes all the way up until your whole life. And to have a healthcare system that ignores a basic element of reproductive health care is insane.
Yeah, there seems to be a
so
contradiction.
These people really are not interested in doing what it takes to have as few abortions as possible.
Yeah, I mean, it's really weird that they're against early sexual education, and at the same time against things, and only specific groups, against things like condoms, right? It's like, we want to promote good sexual health, and we want to promote no abortions and unwanted pregnancies and things of that nature. But you know what? Don't use a condom because God doesn't like latex, or something along those lines. It just makes no sense.
And what you're doing is you're preventing that. Well, first of all, you don't even have sex until you're married. And then once you're married, you don't have sex unless you're open to, being pregnant. And that just doesn't work. You can have whatever, philosophy you want. You can have whatever approach you want, but you have to invite reality into, your way of doing things. Otherwise, it'll be an absolute disaster.
I'm still trying to get. Go ahead. I was just going to quick. I'm still trying to get some people in here. I know people probably do want to come in. They're not messaging me on the right places here. So I'll tell you what. Just try to get a hold of me on G+ if you want in. We have a lot of people watching. Please take a few minutes. Come on in. Say hi to Pam. She doesn't bite much. I don't think.
No, I don't bite.
So she's pretty harmless in that regard. So come on. We had a great time with her last time. In fact, I told her before that she was actually one of my more favorite guests, and we had a great conversation with Seth. We had a great conversation with Arn the other night. That'll be out, I think. When is that coming out, Kyle? If you're there, I think next week. So we've had a lot of great guests.
I'm here.
When is our podcast come out with Arn? That was such a great conversation we had with him the other night.
That will be Wednesday.
Wednesday. So a little bit of teaser on that podcast on Wednesday.
Yep.
Yep.
And then we have
many American Atheist conventions, and he is always a huge draw. He's absolutely a fantastic member of the movement. He joined us in the summer of 2016 when the Tri-State Freethinkers in the Cincinnati area staged a protest on the opening day of Ark Encounter, which is the quote-unquote replica of Noah's Ark. The important thing for these people is that they're doing God's will. It doesn't matter if it makes any sense to you. It's what's important is that you are doing what God wants you to do. I saw years ago a documentary about Mother Teresa, and of course it was not Hitchens' documentary. It was a favorable portrayal of her and the Missionaries of Charity. And there was one point where she said, if God puts you in a palace, you go to a palace. If God puts you in the slums, you go to the slums. So with that sort of theology, it doesn't have to make sense. And that was something for me when once I stopped worrying what the invisible guy was thinking, as far as am I doing something right or wrong, it opened up all sorts of doors for me to get lots and lots of stuff accomplished.
Do you want to real quickly tell people again your backstory of how, and not to the great detail that you went into the last podcast, which by the way is a long story, but very fascinating. If you guys have not watched or heard that podcast yet, go check it out. Very great story by Pam. Matter of fact,
anyway, yes, I met the National Legal Director of American Atheists, and because I live next door to a Catholic church that was ringing their bells 500 times a day. I'm not kidding. And it was a major nuisance. And I tried to get the county attorney on board with maybe enforcing some laws on the books, and they just wouldn't, because pretty much everybody in the government administration in this county belonged to this parish. And it was really an absurd situation, but it got me introduced to the Free Inquiry Group of Cincinnati and Northern Kentucky, which is also an affiliate of American Atheists. And from there, I became a volunteer at Camp Quest, which is a summer camp for the children of atheist, agnostic, and free-thinking families. And that's where I met David Silverman, the president of American Atheists. I also was working for a short amount of time as the paralegal to American Atheist National Legal Director. And then I was hired to be the magazine director, or magazine editor, and then here I am.
Yeah,
So,
again,
God brought me to American
that was a
Atheist.
good summation, by the way, because that was about a condensed 45-minute long journey that you had in
Yeah.
about 5 minutes. It was
Yeah.
pretty good. But let people know, if you go to iTunes right now, you can actually download these podcasts in their entirety. And to let you know, if we get 10% more on our downloads, we will get new and new and what is it called, Kyle? New and something or other on Apple iTunes.
You'll get new office
New and noteworthy.
chairs.
New and noteworthy, yeah. So basically, that's in the top podcast of that's on iTunes. So hey, we're going places thanks to American Atheist. Yay!
Yeah, absolutely. Now, something else I should talk about, and that is the work that American Atheists does that everybody benefits from. What we do is we go where a lot of people won't. We go to places that talk about offense. Did I tell you guys about our lawsuit against the pet shelter?
Yes,
Yes, you did.
unfortunately.
So anyway, what American Atheist does is we do a lot of nipping in the bud. We go in and we say, and we bring an end to things that look harmless on the surface. For example, there was a county in New Jersey, and they run a pet shelter, and for 2 years in a row, they had a priest come in and bless the animals. And what they were doing was they were accommodating a religious ceremony on government land, and that was that's not okay. And so we asked them to not do it, and they did it anyway, and we told them that we were going to sue, and we did. And we got a lot of backlash, even from atheists, because it looked like we were making the puppies starve, and we were taking resources away from a place that does good. But, doing good things and making the world a better place does not give you a pass on the rules. The other thing that's even more important is that violations occur they grow. Violations grow out of smaller ones. So the best time to nip to deal with a church state violation is right at the beginning, right when you have a harmless, pet blessing at a county government building, or when you have a harmless nativity scene in, the foyer of a public school, or you have a harmless prayer that's being said over the loudspeaker before a football game. These things are not harmless because they are the seeds that the bigger violations grow out of. And the problem with not nipping them in the bud is that if they occur in one place, then they're going to occur at, other places. And so now you've got two violations to deal with.
So your policy is basically any little chip in that wall of separation of church and state can lead to bigger chips, and which is kind of unfortunate for our conversation today, because had G-Man not been feeling well and been able to come in here, one of the things he is under the impression of right now is that the separation of church and state is no longer in effect. That would have been a great. That would have been a great. Yeah.
Because
well,
of the,
that what
because
you
of
just
the
did
Johnson
is
Amendment.
what we all just did when we first heard that. Yeah.
Because of the Johnson Amendment.
Because of the Johnson Amendment.
Well, the repeal of the Johnson,
Okay.
the Trump tried.
Yeah,
to
well,
do.
I'm going to have to reserve judgment, until I actually meet him in person.
Pam, I feel like you should at some point, since you said you got so much backlash from the pet shelter thing, you should do what Jimmy Kimmel does and just how he reads
read?
mean tweets.
Yeah.
We can make that,
That would
entire
be-
Well,
episode.
yeah, I can. Yeah, I can do that. I can call some up right now.
Mean
yes.
tweets.
Can you?
The Pam Whissle.
Yeah.
We can make that into an actual segment. That'd be kind of cool.
You have the
This is a giant waste of resources.
Okay,
I put together. Go on.
I'll just say real quick. I got to know how many of them use words like "you're worshiping Satan" or "damn you" or "go to hell."
Oh, that's generic. That's generic hate mail. That we get all the time.
Okay, so you get some really good stuff. Like we get the best. I mean, I could not be this creative to think of the things that they've asked me to do with my body that is probably anatomically impossible.
Yeah, and we get brochures sent to us about, we're going to be going to hell. We get.
Why would people relish in that? I don't ever understood that. Why does a theist, and I'm not being trying to be generalized here. I'm not being ubiquitous among all theists, but there are some theists, it seems, that they seem to revel in the fact that, hey, I'm going to be looking down on you while you're burning for eternity, and they seem to get some kind of perverse pleasure out of it. And I think that indicates maybe they have some kind of sadistical tendencies. Now, granted, it's only a handful. It's probably very rare, but they do exist, and that's kind of psychopathy is pretty scary to me.
Well, yeah. I mean, it's sort of the same thing that watching reality shows provides. You get to feel superior, to other people. Because, most reality shows are about some, pretty crazy situations, and you get to sit at a comfortable distance saying, "Wow, I would never do that. Why is she doing that? Why is he doing that?" It's human nature to sometimes want to like you're the best.
Do you have one available that you want to read, or do you know one off the top of your head that's the worst one, or something you remember that stands out?
I think we need to have Pam on every week to read the latest hate mail.
We can make her a regular guest at
the
this
hate,
point.
The hate. You want the generic hate mail or the one from the atheists about the pet shelters?
Oh, the pet shelter.
Yeah,
definitely.
The pet shelters. Yeah. Well, we've got this is a giant waste of resources. Who cares if they bless animals? And well, it turns out that no one cares less than American atheists. If animals are blessed, as long as it's done on private property. Because the bottom line here is that, and really this is what's important to know, is that a religious ceremony is taking place in a government building, and a religion is benefiting from the government's promotion and involvement.
Now, if this was a private thing, it would have been a problem, right? If this was private shelters, then it would have been an issue. The only reason this was an issue was it was a state-run shelter, correct?
Yeah, it was the accommodation of the religion. That is the issue. It's taking place in a government building, and the government had provided the resources, and they devoted staff, time and attention to this. That's it in a nutshell. Mm-hmm. That was the violation. That's it. Because they're funded with tax dollars, and in exchange, religious activity is restricted. I mean, that's the understanding. The government money comes with that understanding.
Yeah, that's
which makes sense. Yeah, it's just a shame that it happened with a pet shelter. I mean, it's just
the key thing.
Well, if you want to get your foot in the door with trying to make the wall come down a little bit, pets and animals and children.
That's true.
You look really mean going after a pet shelter when they're taking care of animals in need. I mean,
do you think they know what they were doing? Do you think they did that on purpose to bait you?
Oh, I don't know. I would never make this about us. No, it wasn't about us at all. We sent them a letter first. I mean, we don't just drop lawsuits in people's laps.
Right, but they did it anyway, right?
They did it anyway. Yeah, they didn't answer our letter, and they did it anyway.
Oh, I think they were trying to bait you.
No, I don't see that. I think they're actually probably doing blessings, and they had no intention of causing a ruckus or raising the of American atheists. But unfortunately, as you put it out, I think the key point is that there are taxpayer money that are involved here, and that when something is taxpayer money involved, there has to be that separation of church and state. There has to.
Yeah, doing important work and making the world a better place does not give them or any government-funded entity a pass on the rules. Even if on the surface it looks like, the welfare of animals is going to be substandard. That's just simply not the truth. If this whole point is to do something for the benefit of the animals, why doesn't the priest go to a private shelter that does not have government funding?
Just real quick,
that does not have that doesn't have the security of of that funding stream, and bring attention to that pet shelter instead.
Just real quick, Pam, are you playing the drums or something?
Oh, can you?
Oh yeah,
I'm not sitting terribly still.
Okay, yeah, just it picks up everything.
Don't worry, Pam. He gets on to me. He gets on to me all the time.
I
with
have
that too.
sensitive ears.
I'm actually kind of doing a bit of a Bernie Sanders. I'm talking with my arms.
I was just saying, if you try to do a rhythm, you got to do more like a 4/4 cut time.
Yeah.
I thought you were trying to play bongos or something.
No, I don't have any rhythm. So yeah, I mean, people say that it makes us look petty, and at some point we just have to let others live and choose their own beliefs. But that's exactly what a secular government does. Secular government must live and let live, and let people choose their own beliefs. Now, placing what this pet shelter is, I mean, think about this. They place their employees and their volunteers at the direction of a clergy person, for the purpose of engaging in a religious exercise promoted by a government agency. And that's the antithesis of a secular government.
All right, let me ask you this. I was thinking about this the other day. As somebody who was in the military, I was in the military for 6 years. How do you feel about like chaplains in the military? Is that because the military is obviously paid by taxpayers' money? How do you feel about the separation of church and state involved with them having chaplains in the military? Because they definitely have chaplains in the military, but they're non-denominational, or they're supposed to be at least non-promoting one specific religion. They're supposed to be able to accommodate anybody's religion as a chaplain in the military. But how do you feel about having them in the military?
Well, the violation comes when the government favors religion over non-religion. And by putting resources, well, I'm sure you've heard the stories of, on Sundays, you're welcome to go to church, or you can clean the bathrooms.
Right. Yeah. No, they don't. Yeah. They don't force it upon you. You have the option.
Well, they don't force it upon you, but you can either go to church or you can clean the bathrooms.
No,
it's kind of a punishment.
That's favoring religion over non-religion.
It's not like that. I've never had that happen to me, at least.
Oh, okay. Yeah. No, I do know military veterans who've had that done to them. So that really is a thing. Right now, there are there's a big movement to get humanist chaplains into the military, because you need. Clearly, the chaplaincy does a lot of good, and religion works for a lot of people. Well, a humanist approach works for a lot of people too. And if you're in the military and you want to talk to somebody and you don't want to take a theistic approach, then that should be provided for you. And the problem comes when it's considered not real, or humanism is not a religion. Or, what the problem is that you just need to, you need to get good with God.
Well, what would be a humanism type service? Because humanism generally is not.
Yeah, that's my question.
Yeah, it's not really supposed to be religion. The whole point of humanism is to provide more of a non-supernatural approach and more of a ontological naturalism approach, and not to have the guise of religion. Of course, the Supreme Court has said atheism and humanism and all that have the same protections as a religion, and there are people in our community have said, oh, they said atheism is a religion. No, they have not, and I challenge anybody out there to send me documentation as when the Supreme Court has said atheism is a religion. No, what they said was it is to be treated as a religion. In the way they've framed it, is it should be given the same amount of protections and equal rights as any other any religion. So it is not so much you have the freedom to believe what you want. You also have the freedom to not believe what you want. That's what the Supreme Court was saying. Correct?
I think a humanist chaplain is a bit of an oxymoron, isn't it?
I don't. Well, it depends how you look at it.
I mean, is a Jewish chaplain an oxymoron? I mean, chapels are Christian. Chapels are Christian edifices.
Stop asking so many hard questions.
Now we're getting deep. I really think it does matter, how you define, humanism, because again, humanism means different things to different people, and there's different types of humanism. So I don't have a problem with people treating humanism as some type of movement. I think it's more of a philosophy than a religion. I think it's
but there is
out there that is a religion, yes, or they promote it as a religion, sure.
The Yale humanist community, for example, has been providing a secular community at Yale and in the greater New Haven area, where people explore the same things that they explore in religion: ethical values, find inspiration, meaning through connection, serving others. And it's united. It's united, and it's driven by values rather than by beliefs.
And is that what you consider to be religion? Would you consider that approach to humanism a religious approach? Because it's fine.
Well, no, because
I don't matter. It doesn't matter.
A religion is faith is the choice to believe something without the evidence.
Hey, they're at the gates. They're storming the gates.
The gates. You'll edit that out, I hope.
Which Norse god do we piss off now?
The one true Norse god is the one we pissed off.
Steve, I think Professor S.J. Thompson might be joining us.
Okay, we're getting a really. What is that noise? Is it Odin or something? Did we piss off Ocean Keltoy? Because he actually believes in Odin. We could have got him in here. He actually literally does believe Odin exists and chaos exists and Loki exists, and very, very articulate, intelligent fellow. He just has a pantheon belief. Oh, no, excuse me, he's not pantheon. He likes to say he's not pantheon. He's polytheistic. I'm sorry. But you really want to get SJ here? I am totally down for that. I'm not sure if Pam knows she is, but what can go wrong? It's only live.
Well, let me. You can fill her in while I'm gonna step off here, send her the link, and make sure that she's getting in, and then we'll see if she pops in.
Well, I don't know too much about S.J. Thompson, but what S.J. is basically about is that she's had beef with Dr. Richard Carrier. You're familiar with, right, Pam?
Sure.
Yeah. Okay. Well, Richard was on our show last week. He'll be on again on the 28th, and she and him have been going back and forth on various blogs, and I guess, teaches business. She's a professor of business, and she's trying to portray herself as more than that, something like a Greek scholar or something along those lines. And so she is very rabid against atheism, as I've noticed. She might not see it that way, but I've watched some of the things she's had on other feeds, and she does come across as very vitriolic towards atheism. And I don't even know why. I have no idea. I've never talked to her. She's been in my live feed before, and it's just the same kind of, atheist or evil kind of approach. But maybe I could be wrong on that. I mean, I'd like to have a conversation with her as well. So I can't really give you a lot of information about her. I just can tell you that her and Richard do not see eye to eye on things, because obviously he's really big into the mythicism of Christ, right, and the empty tomb argument, and she thinks that he doesn't know what he's talking about. And I could tell you, people may not agree with Richard or Dr. Carey on a lot of things, but I got to say he does a lot of scholarly work. I mean, I'm not familiar with this stuff too much.
Richard Carrier?
Yeah, he's brilliant. I mean, I may not fully agree with him, of course, because we have a different approach.
One of his first books, Sense and Goodness Without God, was one of the first books that I read when I decided that I came to the conclusion that there was no God. And it's a very good book. It's a very long book.
Have you ever talked to him? He's very amenable. I mean,
sure.
Very nice.
Yeah, I've met him. Yeah.
Okay, so she says she has a lingering cough, but she will come into the live chat and
tell her to come on in. She was in the live chat last time. We need to get it live, man. We have people listening.
Well, you can kind of coax her. Let me send her the link.
I don't know well enough to coax her. I've never met her. I've never talked to her. She knows my channel because obviously, she was in the live feed when we had Richard on. And
when has that ever stopped you before, Steve?
The conversations just with having live feeds are a lot more difficult.
Send me the public link, Steve, if you mind.
Okay, one sec. In order to get the link, I gotta hide this real quick so people can't get the link when I show it, because I gotta copy it again. So give me 1 second here.
Not the Hangout link, the public link.
Oh, you mean the watch link?
Yeah.
Okay. I'm giving it to you. Out. And she is about as diametrically opposite of atheism as I can possibly imagine, from what I've listened to on her and read on her.
What's her link? What's her blog?
She goes under the name
her blog is Christian-apologist.com.
Yeah.
Okay.
And by the way, I do realize it's
Well, there
buffering a
is.
little bit. I have the bit rate quite low. It's just in the nature of the beast. So if it buffers, you just have to wait a second or two or refresh. But on the video, the live video, so.
And that is sent.
Now, how did you contact her? If I can ask, you on Twitter or something, or?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Yeah, that's. I did try to reach out to her once on Twitter, but I don't think I got a response. But anybody else want to come and join us while we're doing that? That's fine too. Just message me again on Facebook, preferably on G+. I see a lot of people out there that I know probably wants to come in, or at least would like to come in. Maybe they're just being hesitant. I'm telling you, Pam's really nice. Come on in. Have a conversation with her. You don't have to agree with her.
Hey,
You don't have to disagree.
I will convert for evidence. So maybe you might be the one.
Uh-oh.
Can
She's laid a challenge.
Yeah. You could be that theist. Dun, dun, dun.
I could be wrong.
Yeah, well, I have no problem with that. Like, I have the challenge out there. Hey, you want to be a young Earth creationist? Come on in, show me some evidence, and let's go from there. So far, it's people have failed, but it's entertaining. And then we have.
Well, it's entertaining. It's entertaining until it gets into. It affects other people's lives
or until they build a giant ark with dinosaurs.
Well, not even that. But when creationism should be taught in the same, it should be in a science textbook. No, that's absolutely wrong, and that hurts everybody.
Oh yeah, definitely.
Because
we'll fight on that till the
creationism
day
is
we
not
die.
science, and we're not going to do our science and our medicine and our research based on what Genesis says. We're going to do it based on empirical evidence. And if we're not doing it properly, everybody suffers.
Somebody had asked, Pam, can we convert you to flat universe? Because I'm a
Flat universe?
Yeah, I'm a flat universalist.
Well, yeah. I mean, if you show me the evidence, I have some pretty compelling evidence that the
that'd be another hangout.
that Earth is not flat.
No, but I can show you
But
evidence.
if you
Pam,
hang on,
you can bring me better evidence, then of course.
No, we can. I
Pam,
can show you,
Trevor.
one sec. I can show you
Ask
evidence.
for
Hang on one sec, Kyle. I can show you evidence that the universe is flat. That actually I can do. Because the universe is flat. It's actually the geometric shape of the universe has no curvature to it, such that the amount of negative curvature as opposed to the positive curvature or positive mass out there is equal. So they balance out. So that basically the equation for physics is saying that the net entropy, the net energy of the universe is zero. Therefore, it's a flat universe. But we could do that in another hangout. But yes, we are I think everybody right now is a flat universal person because omega equals 1. Yeah.
Flat planet or flat universe?
We live in a flat
universe.
It's called a flat local geometry. It's actual real science, believe it or not.
Pam, Trevor
I
asked,
thought he was talking about Earth, not flat Earth.
No. It's just
Trevor wants to know how Pam would contrast the situation for atheists in the U.S. compared with those she has met from other countries.
Other countries, let's see. My general impression, wow, atheists from other countries. I'm very, I'm flattered that you think that I'm so well traveled and worldly and that sort of thing. Atheists in other countries. The ones that I've talked to, it doesn't even seem to come up in conversation. And let's just take Western Europe, because that's really where I have most of my experience with conversations. I did an interview with John Boyne a few years ago. He's a novelist, and he is the author. His best known work is The Boy in the Striped Pajamas, which is a young adult novel about the Holocaust. And I think that probably every junior high school curriculum in the country has this book because it's absolutely fantastic. But
great book.
He writes young adult fiction, and he also writes adult fiction. And I interviewed him when he came out with his novel called A History of Loneliness. And it was the point of view of a Catholic priest who went into the priesthood thinking that it was just going to be the best, because when he was growing up, the priest in his Irish neighborhood, that was as good as God. I mean, it didn't get much better than being the priest. I mean, if you could have Father over for dinner, you would, you'd paint your house. I mean, it was just total adulation. And so this guy joins the priesthood because his mother said that God told him to join the priesthood, and he's going in expecting all sorts of, regal treatments, and it's not like that at all anymore because the world is changing, and there's this abuse going on, and he was never anybody to abuse a child, but he certainly saw the signs all over the place, and he never said anything. And his story is his thought process through the years as he's recounting his history as a Catholic priest, and asking himself over and over again, now, and I didn't say anything there. Why? I wonder why I didn't say anything there. And then it comes up with another example, which is even worse. It's like, and I didn't say anything there either. And then there was that time with my niece's christening, and Father was over, and my nephew went in the backyard, and Father was there, and my nephew came back, and my nephew was never the same since. Why didn't I say anything then? So it's a very interesting look at somebody who really just was never even given a chance to have his own thought process. Anyway, I did interview him, and John Boyne is gay, and he did not live his life as an outwardly gay person for his entire life. He came out as a young adult, and I said to him, one of the challenges that atheists in the United States face is, having to stay in the closet.
Amen.
So you've gone through an experience of having to come out of the closet. What advice can you give closeted atheists? What can you tell them, that might be encouraging? And he just said, I don't know that I would have anything to say to them because I don't ever really even think about atheism, and nobody where I'm from does anymore. If we were to, let's say I'm out with some friends and we're having a beer, and if somebody were to say, so do you really believe in God? I mean, everybody else would just look at you like, why are you even bringing that up? You're asking, really? I mean, it's just such a non-issue anymore with so many people, that I think the difference is that it doesn't exist. I mean, yeah, you're an atheist, but in the same way that, I don't play croquet. That's not an issue.
Right.
So that's the big difference, is that it seems to be in Europe, not that there aren't religious people in Europe, because there are, it just doesn't even seem to be anything. It's like, why would I even wonder about that? Why would I even worry about that?
Yeah.
Well, in Europe, it's like coming out as not a Doctor Who fan. That's the same thing over there.
You're not a Doctor Who fan?
Oh, I am a Doctor Who fan. Yeah, I don't get the whole I lack a belief in Doctor Who. No, I'm kidding.
Pam, S.J. Thompson has come into the live chat, and she has a question for you. She asks,
Sure.
what your take on why atheism is increasing in North and Western Europe? Euro-secularism. Why do you think it's increasing?
In Europe?
Mm-hmm.
Well, it's probably increasing for the same reasons that it's increasing in this country. And that is that, first of all, we now have the internet. And so people can find each other quite easily and can have conversations with each other. I mean, this is something that just wasn't able to take place before the internet. So atheists are definitely finding each other, and they're finding their communities, and they're having conversations. They're also finding it's so much easier to research church history, and it's much easier to stay up on news, and it's so much easier to be well informed of the thing they're saying. No, that makes no sense at all.
You can fact check quicker. You know, it's easier. It's a lot easier to
Yes. Mm-hmm.
you know, back in the day, you basically had to go based on what, you know, your preacher said on
When you
Sunday.
think about it, the Bible was never supposed to be written in the vernacular. It was supposed to be. It was only, well, it was first in Hebrew and in Greek, and then it was translated into Latin when Constantine made Christianity the law of the land, and that was as far as it was going to go. And this was a time when the only people who were literate were the clergy, and they would read the book for you, and they would tell you what the book said. And then once literacy started to be a little more common, you were reading your own language. You weren't necessarily reading Latin, and you still couldn't understand the Latin. In fact, Catholic masses were said in Latin until I believe it was 1963, completely in Latin. Yeah. Yeah.
Really?
Completely until 1963.
I didn't know that.
Yeah. So it was a huge thing. Now, going back to the Bible, when that was first translated from Latin into the vernacular, that was a huge deal because now people could read for themselves what their holy book said. And so every time you have an increase in the quality of information, things are going to change, and the myths are going to get outed, and the truths are going to, they're going to come to light. And people who have a hard time not being honest with themselves are going to walk away from stuff that doesn't make sense or does them a great deal of harm.
That kind of goes with something that we talked about last time we had you on. And I was actually surprised by the number. Can you tell us again what the estimated percentage of Americans that are atheist or that identify as atheist, what that would be?
Well, it could be. Well, and here's where we are going to have to get down to talking about definition again, because the category when you see surveys and when you see PRI do a study, or you see the Pew Research do a study, what the categories are: Christian, Hindu, Buddhist, Muslim, Jewish. And then at the end, there's going to be none of the above. And it's really the nones, N-O-N-E-S, that are getting counted in this population. And the population, it can be as high as 26%. Which is
interesting.
Yeah.
And see, that was surprising to me. Now Christian Apologist is in the live chat saying that it is around, or that Gallup indicates that it's 3%. I think you would have.
I don't think she's
take
talking
issue
about
with
that.
Well,
it's 3%. Yeah, and again, it depends. It depends on. My favorite study was done by a statistician at the University of Louisville. His name is Will Gervais, and he and a colleague did a survey to find the number of atheists, and they had two different sets of sampling. And the one group, they actually they had three actually, and the first group was, are you an atheist, yes or no? And those results, that was about 3%. But then the next group, they were asked for to tally up the number of statements that applied to them. And the statements would be like, I am an only child. I grew up in the South. I can drive a stick shift. I have been to Europe. I have a dishwasher in my house. I believe in God. Okay. So the participants who didn't check the I believe in God, that's how they got their number from that group. Now you go to the other group, and instead of saying which statements apply to them, instead they were asked to tally up the numbers of statements that do not apply to them. And so that would, same thing. I'm an only child. I've been to Europe. I can drive a stick shift, all that kind of thing. I do not believe in God. And when you put it in the passive negative and affirmative, then you get a much larger number. And it just comes down to, saying, yeah, I don't believe in God, but I wouldn't call myself an atheist.
Mm.
Which would be a different demographic.
So it's very important in how the question is asked.
Absolutely. And just like any other survey. Yeah.
Because yeah, absolutely.
But
when you ask somebody outright, are you an atheist? Or how do you identify? Do you identify as, Christian, Hindu, Jewish, atheist? When that word there, or none of the above is going to get a much larger response than atheist.
Yeah, and that's the way it should be asked, though. If you really want a fair sampling, it should be asked, how do you identify? If somebody says, do you identify as a theist? You can answer you're a theist. So if you have the examples of, I identify as a theist, I identify as an atheist, or none of the above, then it gives you a much more representative sample of what different positions are out there. Now, I do think that the nuns are one of the fastest growing demographics in Europe and probably in America. Across the board, more people are probably identifying as none of the above rather than theist, or especially to a specific group like Christianity. But did you give the link to Christian apologist? I know she has a cough, but I assured her we don't really mind. Come on in for a few minutes.
Well, I remember that I for the longest time I labeled myself as over it.
Is that a separate demographic? That's more like an
I'm over it.
I like that.
Yeah,
I'm over it. I mean,
I'm over it.
There
is
is an answer to this question. I'm never going to know what the answer is. I can hope with all my heart for the answer to be one way, but I'm not going to know. And no matter what the answer is, there's nothing I can do about it. I have no control over the answer being one or the other.
Well, that's
so
I was kind of hoping Christian
let's
apologists
just
would come
push this aside and get on with my life and start living for today.
Maybe she could come in and give you something that you've never had before. I don't know. See, I always have a problem with theists when they make the argument they know that God does not exist, or excuse me, they know God exists. Now that
well, they might, and she may very well think that she does know.
Sure, but that's a much more interesting question to me than somebody who says, "Yeah, I believe God exists." Okay, whatever. You have a belief, whatever. But if they make an assertion that they know God exists for an absolute fact, I find that to be a very interesting conversation because I want to know why.
Oh, well, they don't. They don't know. They really.
Well, I don't believe that they really don't either, but they sure think they do.
No, what they're saying is that there just has to be, because there just has to be. Just like. But
that's not a knowledge. That's not a.
The Yankees the Yankees just have to win the World Series.
But,
I know Hillary's going to win.
Yeah, but
she just has to win.
That's a misuse of the
come
word,
on.
right? I mean, that's a want. That's a want. That's not a knowledge, right? If somebody says, "I know Hillary has to win," they're just basically saying, "I want Hillary."
That's a need right now.
Or need.
But that's
no.
But that's all it ever is. Is that I want there to be more than this, and I can't get my head around there not being. Well, that doesn't mean that it can't exist. And in Richard Carrier's book, Sense and Goodness Without God, he talks about, something had to create all of this. And he posits, no, it could have just always have been. Why did it start?
No, there's different ways the universe could be. It could be some kind of continual thing. Could have had a beginning. Could have not had a beginning. Either ones are options. There's no one right answer on that. And as you said, we're gonna never freaking know. Probably some questions are probably going to be forever outside our dominion of knowing, or domain of knowing. So I'm okay with that. I'm accepted the fact that I'm never going to have knowledge of certain things. But that doesn't mean we stop having a quest for it. But I'm curious, like, if a Christian apologist, where she stands. I mean, does she advocate that, like, she has a knowledge that God exists, or even more so? I love when people say, like, I know the Earth is flat, or I know evolution's wrong. Those I find the most fascinating as well, because then I want to see.
Well, then you really have to get down to the definition of know. What you mean by know?
Yeah, they use it very, very colloquially, to say the least. because they don't know. If they knew that evolution was wrong, they could probably win their Nobel Prize, right? They'd be probably typing up their thesis right now going, I'm going to be famous. They're not doing that. So they're not going to all these different scientists going, look, I've falsified, the most well-established theory of all in all of science, in all human history. They're not doing that.
Richard Dawkins, going back to him again, he's just got so much great stuff, which is an understatement. He says that what he likes to do is when he talks to maybe a Catholic friend. So you believe Jesus is the Son of Man. Yes. Okay. And you believe that God needed him to die in order for our sins to be saved. Yes, I do believe that. And you do believe that when in the Catholic Mass, when the priest consecrates the host, that this piece of wafer becomes Jesus. You really believe that. And when people are really, really pressed, they'll say, well,
not really.
No, but
of course not.
Not really, but it's symbolism. But
but in the Catholic faith, it's not.
Yeah, I know.
In the Catholic faith, it is not. It is transubstantiation, right. And that becomes Jesus.
It becomes flesh.
And the only person who can make that wafer into Jesus is an unmarried male who has graduated from seminary and been ordained. And there's nobody else in the world who can do that.
And I'm not dogging on any religious practice, and I'm surely not dogging on Catholicism at all, not my style. But technically speaking, how is that not cannibalism? If that was the case, if it was,
swallow the leader.
So I mean, I don't know how they get. I don't know how they get around certain things.
You've never heard of swallow the leader?
No,
Pam just got that in.
Yeah, I'm not. This is going to be demonetized for sure. There goes our audience. Thank you very much.
No,
I love it. Keep going,
Pam. It's not
Pam.
original to me. None of this stuff is original to me.
How many more theists can we piss off tonight?
But it also, but when you think about it, it makes sense because blood atonement is a very, very old concept. So, of course, Jesus would shed his blood, and
but why? That's my question. Like, what if?
Well, yeah, I mean, because
if you like these rules. Because. Well, Pam just said that it can only be given by. She made a good point. An unmarried priest. Did you know that
unmarried male who has been ordained?
But that is something that they tacked on later. It wasn't originally. You didn't have to be.
None of it's original.
Celibate. They had priests that had many wives back in, like at the beginning, and that was something that they tacked on later. So when did that come into?
Well, that came into play when the church was losing property to the offspring of the bishops.
Ah, money. You're kidding.
Always a financial reason for things, is there not?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
No way.
Yeah. And for the longest time, widows were encouraged not to remarry. And going back, and this is kind of sad, but this is going back really far. Childless couples were not encouraged to adopt, so they could leave their money to the church.
Ah, interesting.
Mm-hmm. So, it's just, this is just practical. I mean, these are practicalities. The organization wanted to keep itself going. So it did what it needed to keep itself going.
I don't know. I just think at a certain point there has to be a point where you just stop and you look at there's just so many things to start cracking into that doubt. I mean, take the Bible aside. I mean, look at your denominations that you have across the United States. I mean, there's thousands of different denominations and sects that can read one verse with the same words and get 20 different interpretations out of it.
Yeah, why are there so many different versions of the Bible just in English alone?
And then they say
Very good question.
this version is better than that version. Don't use this version. By the way,
Yeah, they fight over the versions.
Christian apologist says, I provided evidence in my blogs. We have cosmological, moral, theological, ontological, aesthetic, and logical arguments for God. We have additional arguments for Jesus. And so if that's okay, Kyle, I wouldn't mind extending an offer to Christian apologist when her voice is better. She can pick any one of those subjects, any one of those arguments, and we can have a full-on discussion of her evidence for God or for Jesus, whatever, using any of those methods. I would be quite fine.
I like the moral aspect.
That's my least favorite, but we could do that. We've done that a few times, but yeah, I would love to see that evidence, because I've heard most of those arguments before, and I don't find any of them convincing.
Well, just because I mentioned Pam, why can't atheists be moral?
Why can't we be moral?
Right.
Well, I don't think, when you think about it, the most moral people in the world are atheists, because
that's what I was thinking.
We're doing things because it's the right thing to do, not because we're expecting reward after we die.
There's a more altruistic nature to it, right? I mean, if you're because you're just being altruistic and you're doing it because it's the right thing to do, rather than saying, I'm doing this because my religion tells me to do it. I see a difference there.
If that's what you need to keep from murdering and killing and stealing and lying, then please, by all means,
believe.
Keep on believing.
Yeah. Right. But really, to me, it goes farther. It goes farther than that, because when you break it down, you're practicing this religion ultimately to save you from perishing for eternity in hell. Like, that is that's what you want to avoid. It's not something that you would do.
Which is a smart thing to do if you think it's real.
Agreed. However, if hell was not a part of the entire equation, if it was just like, well, if you believe in me, then that's good. I'll give you a high five at the end of it. If not, no skin off my nose. It would be a lot different. But it's the fear that keeps people in line. Yeah. It's not that you actually want to do that.
There'd be a lot less fear.
And I defy someone to tell me differently.
No. If there wasn't that fear of where am I going to end up for eternity, then I think that a lot of people would be like, okay, well, it's good to think about, but I'm not going to worry about it, and then live their life like they normally would. But I do believe very strongly that, from what I've looked into, the whole concept of this burning for eternity was added much later on. It was used as a coercion technique to try to get people to believe a specific type of religion or denomination. I don't even read it in the Bible that way, and I personally don't believe that there is a fiery hell like that. So, I mean, I can still maintain my agnosticism and say I don't believe, or I actually just don't.
Well, when you think about it, if you want to be an immoral person, the best thing to do is to be a Christian, because Jesus said, "I shall be first." If at the very, very final nanosecond of your existence, if you repent, then all is forgiven. So.
Yeah, that's another thing. Good point.
Not? Yeah, I mean that's a really, really good way to go about doing things. And then if you consider, let's say Jim Bakker or Pat Robertson, what behavior doesn't matter. What matters is that you. Literally at her, well, not her desk, but taking over the magazine that she founded. So do I ever think I don't even think about that anymore. I think anything's possible. I'm prepared for anything that I ever think.
That's a good point. That's inspiring.
Yeah.
All thanks to church bells.
All thanks to church bells. Yeah.
That started it all.
So yeah, you can find anything. You can find something in Scripture that's going to fit your agenda. And in Catholicism, really, well, no, I would say that that fundamental Christianity probably takes it to its extreme, because I don't know that they have purgatory. I don't think they do, but the Catholic Church certainly does. Even if you do repent, you're going to have to spend some time in purgatory, but then you are eventually going to be, you're going to be bumped up to heaven.
How do we know this isn't the purgatory?
But then there's the confession loophole. You do something, and if you're sincerely sorry, and if you confess your sins, then it's like it never happened.
This would actually be purgatory.
Christian apologist wants to know what your take on Satanism is. The Satanists have taken up with Ayn Rand's moral value philosophy.
What, the Satanists?
Uh-huh.
Is she talking about the Satanic Temple, or is she talking about worshiping Satan?
Doesn't clarify. Hold on one second. Let's see if she responds. Can you clarify that for us, SJ?
It takes a few seconds because of the.
They keep saying that it's buffering. Is there 1966 by Anton? Oh Lord, LaVey.
Anton Salvador.
Okay.
Yeah.
They
He wrote the
explained in
Satanic
classic
Bible.
Yeah.
What about?
And she wants to know what I think about it.
What's your views on?
Well, LaVey Satanism is a form of religion under atheism. It's actually a atheistic religion that they've started. It was originally meant to mock Christianity by taking things that Christians find sacred and then twisting them in a way to actually.
Well, but let's make sure that we're keeping Church of Satan separate from the Satanic Temple, because those are two separate organizations.
Yeah.
And the Satanic Temple is an atheist organization. They don't think that God is real, and they don't think that Satan is real. But they use Satan as an example of
that. You know what I mean? Like basically what you're doing is the same thing. I mean, not
forms. They got a pass in the 1950s because there was this was during the Cold War, and there were some men in Congress who wanted the people who were fighting the godless element in the United States to have a leg up.
Okay,
and nothing has been changed. Nothing's been changed since then.
We are buffering a little bit. We're probably gonna have to wrap this up.
Yeah, I think
so.
That last part cut out.
Well, it'll be on the recording. It'll be on the video upload on our podcast. The live feed missed a little bit of that. That's all.
Yeah. Okay. Mine's spinning too.
Yeah, I can see it spinning now. Well, it's about time to wrap it up anyways.
I'd love to have a conversation with her.
Well, when she with
we're gonna
apologist
with SJ.
Yeah, when she her voice gets better, we'll arrange something like that.
Mm-hmm.
She's down. I think. Let me see. Everyone, thanks for having me. Yeah. Actually, I'll be in touch. And we'll set up something with you and Pam to have a discussion when you're feeling better. Everybody's sick today.
I'm actually doing okay for a change today, but I'm actually wired on coffee. So caffeine is an amazing drug. Yeah. So, but let me throw this out there real quick before I turn it back over to you, Kyle. I do want to thank everybody. I apologize for the buffering. I don't know what's up with it. Sometimes it does that with variable bit rates. I'm going to be trying different things out. Well, for the people that did hang in there, I know they enjoyed the conversation. It will be uploaded in its entirety.
Steve, I think, has a good topic direction to go in. And we'll set that up with SJ and Pam and get that out to you guys. We wish G-Man a speedy recovery and hate that happened to him. Glad to find out that he's okay. And, just good vibes out to G-Man. Pam, a pleasure as always. The conversations, I think, could just go on and on and on and on because there's so much that we could unpack there, I think. But you are a pleasure as always, and we appreciate you bearing with the last-minute change that we had. I know in terms of how the setup was going to go. I know that's kind of like a gear in the wrenches there, but you held in strong, and it was a fantastic conversation.
Well, thank you for having me.
Thank you, Pam, and we'll be seeing you soon. We'll be definitely seeing you soon. And to the audience and to everybody else listening on the podcast, we thank you very much for joining us on the Non Sequitur Show, and we bid you a good night.